Welcome to Spiritual Matrix, and today I want to talk about soul fragmentation and why you must integrate your wounds in order to stop spiritual warfare. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you, he just needs to divide you. When you live in duality, like most people do, they show one face to the public, but behind closed doors, they're a different person. They show one face to their family, but for those who do business with that person, they see a completely different person. This is where the soul stays fragmented, performing, and spiritually drained. But how about when you integrate your wounds, expose your shadows, and surrender your whole self to God, to the Creator, to the Source, and to the light? You end the enemy's legal right to torment you. You end the spiritual warfare on yourself, on your future generations, and those who come after you. In the physical world, a lot of people have bought into the lie. You can't be weak in business. You got to suppress your softness. You have to be soft in church, but sharp in business. You have to be polished for the family, for the Christmas and Thanksgiving photos, but you're broken behind closed doors. There are tears and heartbreak and weariness in your own household. But you seem completely unbothered. This is what we call soul fragmentation. In James 1:8, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. You cannot walk in divine authority. You cannot tell us that you're doing business and doing God's work if half your soul is hiding behind shame, pain, and hidden trauma. Where we see a lot of this is especially in the business world, where people are chasing money without purpose because it's become an idol. This is idolatry. We also see this in families where people are more concerned about propping up their children instead of saving their children's soul. When you integrate your hunger, your ambition, your edge, your resourcefulness, your vision, and submit to God, they become the tools for your elevation. However, most people believe in being greedy. I run a business, a real estate business, and I have been to conferences where we have been told, you must be greedy. But this is misguided hunger. It's misguided in all ways, because that hunger, that ambition, that can do, that resourcefulness where you're building something out of nothing, that is all God has given you. It's your assignment for His greater good. Those are all things that He's put in you that He didn't put in somebody else. He put it in you. But when you're driven by greed, the wheels will come off. What you have to remember is that you're a masterpiece in progress. Your ambition, or what you call greed, may even reveal your divine calling to build, to own, and to lead others when it's healed and aligned. You know, taking one of the most famous families where we saw greed and generational curse play out in real time, this was Bernie Madoff. Bernie wasn't just running a Ponzi scheme. In the physical world, yes, it was a financial crime, it was a Ponzi scheme. But he was operating under a spirit of greed, deception, pride, feeding the flesh, starving the spirit. He created an empire off the backs of other people's trust, other people's sweat that they had built up their nest eggs for years. And he decided he was going to rob them by building a luxury, prestige, financial power center around himself. But what he didn't realize was that he was making a covenant with the darkness. Anytime there is exploitation, the devil is at work. The devil's work is afoot. So let's decode this. What happened spiritually? His greed was not just financial, it was spiritual rebellion. He enslaved his soul to lies and created a false identity that eventually collapsed. His family became collateral damage in a war they never started, but they were born into it. Unchecked shadows like greed, they don't just destroy wealth. They unleash generational spiritual warfare on the rest of the lineage. The spiritual fallout for Bernie: one son died of suicide, the other died of cancer. His name became a generational curse, not a legacy. He didn't just lose money, he lost peace, he lost honor, he lost his lineage. This was divine justice at play, and it played out in the public. Because in the end, what is built on lies must eventually be buried in the truth. It doesn't matter how long you get away with it. God gives you a long leash to fix things. But because most people can't hear themselves, most people are self-idolizing, most people are idolizing the money, most people are idolizing the lifestyle, they never hear the whisper. This is called the distraction of materialism. 1 John 2:15 through 16. Do not love the world or the things in the world. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but from this world. When a culture worships distraction, lifestyle, prestige, discernment becomes warfare. The lesson for us is that sometimes when we don't integrate our own wounds, when we don't lay them and seek clarity from the Creator, the Source, the Light, God, we end up in situations like this where greed is not just about money. It's a spiritual appetite that, when it's left unchecked, becomes a portal for destruction. And in the spiritual realm, it becomes a spiritual warfare that will rage throughout your generations. And of course, there are options to get these spirits removed, these curses to be removed. When greed is integrated and surrendered, it can become drive, it can become vision, it can become an enterprise with purpose. In Proverbs 10:22, we're told, the blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it. Greed for power becomes a curse. Vision for impact becomes a calling. You choose. Bernie Madoff didn't just steal money, he stole legacy. His greed wasn't ambition. It was a covenant with destruction. He's destroyed a lot of lives, including his and his children's and his grandchildren. His family became proof that you can't outrun what you refuse to surrender. That's not just financial collapse. It's not just financial crimes. In the spiritual world, it's spiritual warfare. What the world saw as a crime was actually a generational curse activating in real time. Integration is healing and identity restoration. Integration says, I will not hide my pain. I will not let shame shape me. I will bring every part of me into the light so that I can be made whole. Fragmentation keeps you praying but not trusting. Praying without faith. Works without faith. Building businesses while sabotaging relationships. Wearing masks and wondering why no one knows the real you. When you integrate, you disarm the devil because he no longer has a secret to exploit. Everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. That is Ephesians 5:13. What is the cost of hiding? The cost of hiding is spiritual homelessness. This is why a lot of people, while they're out in the world doing things that we think are great things or we think they're just okay, they're feeling completely lost. They don't belong anywhere. The souls are wandering. You think you're hiding your ugly side, is protecting your image, but it's actually starving your spirit. You keep building an identity on pain, curses, and performance and wonder why you still feel empty. You can't cast out what you keep covering up. If you have been living this life and you just feel like you must change, something is calling you to change, then you need to declare for yourself, I have called myself greedy, messy, angry, too much. But I am not what hurt me. My trauma is not my compass. I am not the mask I wore to survive. I am what God can redeem through the darkness I once ran from. So I bring it all to the altar. I bring it all to God, the light, the source, the creator. My pride, my hustle, my shadows, my silence, and I ask God, reclaim them. Because in integration, I find my authority, I find my voice, and I end the spiritual war I have been fighting with myself. If you're looking for scripture that can help you find your true calling and overcome some of the challenges with shadow work, because this is in the mainstream, it's called shadow work. Here we're just calling it wounds. What you need to remember is that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. This is James 1:8. Ephesians 5:13, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes light. Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Isaiah 6:13, to give them beautiful ashes, oil for joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. We will continue another series. This is shadow work with spiritual fire. This is divine healing revolution for the spiritually savage.